And we saw it in 2020, right? We printed half of all the money that's existed in the history of our republic, 247 years, half of it in an 18-month period. So what should have happened? Well, gold should have doubled, but it didn't. Why not? Well, because JP Morgan's been spoofing the price, and that's a whole other story for another day. But the other asset did double. It almost perfectly doubled from 10 to 20,000, exactly as you would expect. That was Bitcoin.
Welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have Mark Yusko giving us a breakdown on the coming bull run and recent market volatility that's been a game changer for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Yusko dives into the current financial landscape, highlighting how the potential second bailout for banks is actually a great sign for Bitcoin. He points out that the printing of money in 2020 led to a doubling of Bitcoin prices from $10,000 to $20,000, proving that alternative assets like Bitcoin are the solution in the current economic climate. According to Yusko, the traditional banking system is fragile and can easily crumble under the weight of bad loans and fraudulent activity. Bank balance sheets consist of assets and liabilities, with the equity of the bank being in gold. But when that gold disappears due to bank failures, it leads to an urgent bailout. That's where Bitcoin comes in as a reliable alternative asset that can withstand economic shocks and provide a safe haven for investors. Let's check out the latest interview with Mark Yusko as he discusses what we can expect with Bitcoin, the crypto market, and the ongoing banking crisis in 2023. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here on this channel. Let's get right into the video.
A week ago, everyone was freaking out, right? Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks. Bailouts are good for Bitcoin and for crypto, and sure enough. I think there are so many things to talk about here. One is, this crisis, and people are calling it a crisis, is very different than the global financial crisis. And the core reason for that is the type of assets on the bank balance sheet. So if you think about a bank balance sheet, there's the green, right? So St. Paddy's Day, you got the green side, assets, things that derive value for the bank. Then there are the liabilities, the red. And the liabilities are actually our assets, right? We put our money in a bank and it becomes their money. It's one of the things that people don't really think about. It's no longer your money, it's theirs. And you have an IOU that is money good most of the time, but those liabilities, and in a perfect world, the assets, which are the loans that they make or the investments that they make, accrete value, and the green becomes bigger than the red, and it leaves you with some gold, right? Pot of gold. And the gold is the equity of the bank. And in a normal functioning system, that gold grows as the green expands and people can get access to their deposits. So if you think about what a bank does, it takes the deposits of everybody, the community puts their deposits in, and then it takes those deposits and makes loans. And those loans could be the form of a mortgage. We've all seen It's a Wonderful Life, where it's about the building a loan and building other people's homes. It could be loans to businesses so they can buy stuff or build products. But it can also be investments in yielding assets like bonds. Then we had 1987 problem, where you had bad people doing bad stuff, like literally stealing money. So that was bad. And if you steal the assets, and if your assets, the green, shrink to smaller than the red, and people then try to take their money out, there's no gold, right? Gold disappears. So Charles Keating and all those guys, they did bad stuff and people went to jail. Well, then we had the global financial crisis. Well, what was the global financial crisis? Well, the green was not so green. They made loans to imaginary people and people's third homes and interest-only loans and all kinds of crazy stuff that was never going to get paid back. And so again, the gold disappeared and it had to be a bailout, which is why Bitcoin was born.
Yusko goes on to say, anytime there are bad actors who steal assets, the benefits of alternatives like Bitcoin become all the more apparent. With the string of fraud getting exposed, beginning last year with the FTX collapse, and now with the current banking crisis, Mark says that Bitcoin is a viable form of new money.
When a banking crisis happens, when there's a loss of confidence in a banking system, basically you vaporize the gold, right? You vaporize the value, the money at the base layer of the system. And therefore, the currency, the credit, because the only money in the world, Ash, and you and I have talked about this, is gold. Money is an asset that exists in the absence of a liability. That's gold for 5,000 years. Now, I'll argue it's Bitcoin for the next 5,000, but let's just say it's gold. And everything else is credit. JP Morgan famously said, gold is money, everything else is just credit or debt. And so what happens is when you lose confidence, then all of a sudden the value dissipates and you have to devalue the currency by printing more of it, by fiat. And so that fiat fiasco, as I like to call it, my hashtag fiat fiasco, that goes on over and over and over again is when governments that overspend, banks foment that and facilitate that, and then you have to pay the piper and they can't, so they just print more money. And we saw it in 2020, right? We printed half of all the money that's existed in the history of our republic, 247 years, half of it in an 18-month period. So what should have happened? Well, gold should have doubled, but it didn't. Why not? Well, because JP Morgan's been spoofing the price, and that's a whole nother story for another day. But the other asset did double. It almost perfectly doubled from 10 to 20,000, exactly as you would expect. That was Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. I struggle with a couple things. I struggle with one, why did people feel the need to incite a bank run, right? Bank runs bring up this whole age-old thing about, I hear the Bitcoin maxis and others saying, fractional reserve banking, it's a fraud. It's a fraud from day one. You know the day one that company is bankrupt. Like, okay, time out, stop. I asked this question, I challenge anyone listening, okay? Name a country that either does not have or has a poorly functioning fractional reserve system, banking system, that you would move to today. I'll wait. Can't do it. Can't do it. What separates the great countries in this world from the lousy ones, and by lousy I mean tough places to live, dictatorships, et cetera, is well-functioning fractional reserve banking. When the community comes together to pool risk and create wealth and innovation by funding businesses and asset ownership collectively through fractional reserve banking, the world is a better place. Now, can it be abused? Can it be manipulated? There's a reason the Rothschild family is the wealthiest family in the world, right? The wealth of the Rothschild family, single family, now it's a big family, like big, the bottom 3/4 of all the people in the world, same wealth. One family, 3/4 of people on the planet. Okay, so it can be manipulated for gain, but the good that's done by fractional reserve banking, off the charts.
Yusko disagrees with the argument that fractional reserve banking is a fraud, as it plays an important role in pooling risk and creating wealth and innovation through funding businesses and asset ownership. He also argues that gold has traditionally been considered money because it exists as an asset that is not tied to any liability. However, he suggests that Bitcoin may become the new form of money as it is not tied to any underlying asset or liability either. This is especially relevant now, as the US government printed half of all the money that had ever existed in the country's history in 2020, leading to a devaluation of the currency. While JP Morgan may be manipulating the price of gold, Bitcoin has been growing in value due to its limited supply and global demand. What do you think about the latest interview with Mark Yusko and his prediction for the volatile banking industry and where Bitcoin is headed in the coming weeks? Comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this. We'll see you in the next video.